My name is Mia Yates. I'm 23 and work from home. I have an older brother, 5 years my senior, who's engaged to Natalie, a 26-year-old woman. Natalie and I are very different. While I struggle with socializing, she's outgoing and makes friends easily. Natalie has grown close to our parents and frequently shows up at our house without any notice. Today, she arrived unannounced. When the doorbell rang, my mom immediately recognized it was Natalie and welcomed her in. Natalie walked into the living room and casually said, "I'm here." She seemed surprised when she saw me, remarking, "Mia, you're still here?" without a greeting. I replied, "I'm working from home," but she quickly dismissed it, saying, "That's not enough. You need a real job." I didn't know how to respond, so I simply returned to my work without saying anything further. My room is my sanctuary. It's soundproof, and I designed it with my parents' approval, paying for everything myself. It's like my personal retreat, and I keep it locked and private. To enter, you have to unlock the soundproof door, then open another one. When I entered, I couldn't hold back my frustration and yelled. I was upset that Natalie didn't understand that I was working. At lunchtime, a little light in my room blinked, signaling it was time to eat. I joined my parents for lunch, and my mom suggested we eat together. When I sat down, I noticed Natalie across from me, clearly upset. She scoffed, "You're eating even though you don't have a job? Don't you care about disappointing your parents? You're just like a parasite." I stayed silent and listened, while my parents said grace, and I did too before eating. Natalie wasn't pleased that my parents hadn't reprimanded me. "Don't worry, Mia is our daughter, and we'll take care of her," my dad reassured her, but she wasn't convinced, continuing to express her concerns. "I don't feel comfortable marrying into this family if things stay like this," she said, still angry. My parents tried to calm her, saying, "Just marry into our family. Everything will be fine." But Natalie wasn't satisfied. "What if you can't care for Mia anymore? Do you expect me or our kids to take care of her?" she insisted, assuming I'd always depend on others and never become independent. I stopped eating, feeling hurt by her words. My mom defended me, saying, "Mia does work, you know, don't worry about her." But Natalie wouldn't stop worrying. "Look at her at 23, braided hair, glasses, always in sweats. Who'd believe she's working?" Natalie said, clearly frustrated. I tried to defend myself softly, replying, "How I look doesn't affect my work," but it seemed to anger her even more. "Then tell me what kind of job you have," she demanded, staring at me angrily. I was too scared to speak. My mom stepped in, saying, "Mia's job is private, and we can't discuss it." Natalie stormed off, saying, "So I'm not part of this family, is that it?" I felt guilty for causing a scene and apologized to my parents. My dad reassured me with a smile, saying, "It's okay, Mia, just do what makes you happy." After dinner, I felt a little better and decided to talk to Natalie about my job. After my brother's wedding, I mentioned it during the meal, and my parents thought it was a good idea. Later that evening, after cleaning up, my mom and I went grocery shopping while my dad worked in the garden. When we returned, we found Natalie crying in the living room, with my dad comforting her. My mom asked what had happened, but Natalie was too upset to explain. My dad told us he'd heard a loud noise while he was outside, pointing to a crowbar and hammer on the table. I immediately realized something had happened to my room and rushed to check. When I entered, I was horrified to see the door damaged, as if someone had tried to force it open. My dad called my brother, who promised to come over soon. I decided to stay in my room and wait for him, trying to calm myself down. While waiting, I called my company and got permission to tell Natalie about my job after she married my brother. When I saw the light blink in my room, I knew my brother had arrived. As I stepped out, I was surprised to see him already at the door. He apologized for startling me but didn't look at me, only at the damaged door. It was clear he was shocked by what Natalie had done. I told him not to worry, that I'd replace it myself, but he insisted that Natalie would take care of it. He took my hand and led me to the living room, where Natalie and my parents were waiting. Once we walked in, my brother confronted Natalie, saying, "I never imagined you were capable of such violence." Everyone was taken aback by my usually calm brother's anger. He insisted, "You need to apologize properly to Mia and fix the door." Natalie cried, repeatedly apologizing to my brother. But he interrupted, saying, "This apology isn't for me," giving her a stern look. I told my brother it was fine, but he kept his eyes on Natalie. She turned to me, knelt down, and apologized, promising to fix everything. I accepted her apology but was curious about why she'd done it. So, I asked her. She said, "I thought if you didn't have a safe space, you'd have to get a job." I thought about whether I should tell her about my job before the wedding, but knowing it went against company rules, I stayed quiet. The tension between my brother and Natalie bothered me, so I decided to lighten the mood by giving them concert tickets. As Natalie looked at the tickets, she gasped, "These are for the Ames concert." Her face lit up, and she turned to my brother, saying, "Let's go." Her excitement was contagious. My brother asked, "Are you sure? These tickets are hard to get." I replied, "I got lucky. You can use them to make peace if you want." My brother's face also brightened. Seeing them so happy made me happy too. The atmosphere lightened, and everyone forgot about the damaged door, enjoying their meal together. The day of the concert, while I was out, Natalie stopped by to thank me. Since I wasn't home, she told my parents, "Enjoy yourselves. Looks like Mia decided to work outside for a change." The concert was amazing. Afterward, my brother called, thrilled about the show. He mentioned that Natalie was a huge Ames fan and had always wanted to attend their annual concert. He said she was overjoyed about seeing them live. On their way home, Natalie couldn't stop talking about how incredible Ames was. When I mentioned I was glad we had resolved things, my brother surprised me by saying, "The soundproof door we got as compensation cost $7,000. I simply replied, "That sounds about right." He seemed surprised and said, "Wow, that's pricey." I explained to my brother that the components needed for a soundproof room were costly, which only added to his surprise. He mentioned how Natalie had been shocked by the $7,000 cost of the door, but that the concert made it worth it. I felt good about giving them the tickets, especially since my brother and Natalie seemed to be getting along. However, Natalie still couldn't grasp the concept of my work-from-home job and thought I started working outside after the concert, which seemed to make her happy. When she realized her mistake, she began calling and visiting my house daily, insisting that I find a job. I had hoped I could make it through until the wedding, but things only got worse. Even though I tried to avoid her until then, Natalie kept calling me to the living room, pestering me about getting a job before the wedding, saying, "I don't want a jobless relative to embarrass Natalie." I gave her some souvenirs, like mascots and file folders from my old company. At first, she eagerly accepted the items she liked, but then she started questioning why I had so much of it. I hesitantly told her that a friend from the company gave them to me. When Natalie heard this, her smile grew wider, and she seemed even more pleased. "Can you get me more tickets next time?" she asked. But the issue wasn't just the tickets, she wanted more of the merchandise and began causing a fuss about being allowed into my room. I managed to stop her a few times, but I was worried she'd break the door again. So, I took a deep breath and gave her a firm warning. "Natalie, if you break the door again, it won't just be the cost of repairs. Last time, I covered it. Next time, it will be your responsibility." Her face went pale at my words, and I wondered if she was seriously considering doing it again. All I could do was hope that the wedding would be over soon so I could have some peace. Even with that warning, up until the wedding day, Natalie visited or used the call light every single day. I lost track of how many times I yelled, "Enough already," from my room. I tried talking to my brother about it, but he seemed resigned, saying, "I've told Natalie over 100 times that Mia is working, but she just doesn't listen." In my mind, I wished my brother would get as angry as he did when she broke my door, but I knew he was caught up in wedding preparations. He mentioned he had a ton of work to do before the wedding so he could go on his honeymoon, so I didn't hold much hope for his help. I had to accept that it was up to me to deal with Natalie. Finally, the day before the wedding arrived. As expected, our parents spent the day together, so the four of us had a fun evening looking through old photo albums and reminiscing. It was nice to spend time as a family after such a long time. I mentioned that when I get married, my brother will start his own family, so it'll just be the three of us with our parents. The day before the wedding might feel a bit lonely, but my brother reassured me, saying, "No, I'll come here and spend the day with you." I was glad he said that. In that peaceful moment, his phone rang. It was Natalie calling. He answered, then handed me the phone, saying, "Natalie wants to talk to you." When I picked up the phone, Natalie said, "Hey, something's going on with Ames. There's a big announcement tomorrow. Can you ask your friend who gives you the merchandise about it? What if she's quitting or taking a break?" Apparently, the agency had posted on social media that there would be a major announcement the next day. I didn't want to be bothered during this family time, so I simply said, "I don't know," and hung up. My brother shared the same sentiment and turned off his phone. When our dad said it was time to sleep early, my brother bowed and thanked our parents for their care. He said he was ready to be happy with Natalie. Mom joked, "That's what happens when women get married." My brother laughed along with everyone, and we wrapped up the night before the wedding on a lighthearted note. The wedding day finally came. I told my family I'd be a little late in the morning, and they left for the venue without me. When I arrived later, I went to the waiting room to congratulate Natalie. I knocked, and there she was, the stunning bride, all ready for the big day. Just as I was about to congratulate her, she suddenly turned into a completely different person. She said there was still something important from yesterday's conversation she needed to tell me. I apologized and asked what was wrong. She told me to leave. I tried explaining that it was my brother's wedding, but she was upset because I didn't have a job and didn't want people to think I was part of the family. I wanted to argue, but Natalie, the bride, came right up to me and said firmly, "If I tell you to leave, you leave." Then she slammed the door in my face. I felt deeply hurt and went to the room they had set up for me. There, professionals did my makeup and hair, and I changed into the nice dress I'd bought for the wedding. But I knew I wouldn't be able to attend. While I was getting ready, my parents called. I told them what had happened and promised I would still celebrate in my own way, even though I couldn't go to the ceremony. The wedding began without me, but I watched it on a screen from the room. I nearly cried when I saw my brother looking for me, but I reminded myself it was a joyful occasion, not a sad one, and silently sent my blessings as I watched the ceremony. After the celebration, the event organizer announced, "We have a special video for the stars of today's show. Please watch the screen." The lights dimmed, and a video began playing. Everyone in the room cheered when they saw Ames, the person Natalie adored, appear on the screen with a message. "Surprise! It's me, Ames. Congratulations on your marriage, bro. And to you, Natalie." Natalie looked stunned and glanced at my brother, who seemed to say, "That's Mia. I've been looking forward to this day, but I couldn't make it due to some urgent matters." I said. I made up an excuse for not being there, but I wanted to share my congratulations. "And just so you know, Natalie, I never told you, but I'm now part of your family. However, I'm moving overseas soon, so we probably won't see each other much. You can ignore me if you want." Oh, and I wasn't just lounging around, I was actually working in my home studio. I couldn't resist adding a bit of sarcasm, but I ended by saying, "I really wish you both all the happiness. I'm a singer-songwriter named Ames, and I've gained some popularity on social media. My stage name, Ames, is just my real name spelled backward." When the lights came back on, everyone was staring at Natalie. She looked shocked and utterly surprised. My part was done, so I left the venue with the hair and makeup team and other workers. Later, my brother called me. He said that after we left, Natalie was supposed to thank the guests and say goodbye, but instead, she ran around looking for me. When she found out I had left, she started crying in front of everyone. I also heard from friends that now everyone knows Natalie as the bride whom Ames doesn't even consider family. My speech at the wedding went viral on social media. People say Natalie is deeply regretting her actions and can't even go out in her neighborhood anymore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Stay stunned.